These are my photos from my trip to Beijing, China for Chinese New Year's back in 2004.
This was my first trip that I signed myself up for a guided day tour. Unfortunately, this resulted in my first dose of tourist trap in China. They're showing me how they cut jade, right before they ushered me into this room, where they tried to sell me on this $400,000 jade boat. They tell me shipping to the United States isn't a problem at all. Though I shouldn't complain too much about traveling in a guided group, there are definitely advantages. Mainly, you don't have to plan as well, but it's also a good way to meet other travelers. This photo was taken at the Ming Tombs with my two new friends I met on the guided tour. After leaving the Ming Tombs, the tour group headed to the Great Wall of China. Because I was traveling in December, I got to see snow on the Great Wall. Hiking up the wall can be breathtaking, and in more than one way. It has certainly earned its reputation as the Great Wall, but I think one could also call it the Great Staircase for its vast number of steps. If you have enough time and enough stamina, you could make it to the top of one of the hills, where you'll see the wall just zigzag through the mountains off into the horizon. Once the guided day tour was over with, I traveled on my own to Tiananmen Square, where the Chinese Capitol buildings are, and the infamous 1989 student massacre happened. Right across from Tiananmen Square is the Forbidden City. Without a doubt, this is a must-see for anybody traveling to Beijing. But be wary of con artists. The typical scam found around Tiananmen Square and the Forbidden City is that you'll be approached by someone of college age. They'll convince you that they're a calligraphy student and that their professor is in town and that he would be willing to sell you ancient works of calligraphy. In actuality, the stuff is probably printed up on a LaserJet printer in the next room. But don't let that deter you from seeing this most amazing destination. The Forbidden City was home to 24 of China's emperors, and during a span of about 500 years, the only people allowed to travel freely through the city were the emperors. Outside the walls of the Forbidden City, metropolitan Beijing can be a little overwhelming, but that's not to say the city does not have its fair share of parks. Most parks and temples have some body of water. If you don't mind cold weather, the winter can be a fun time to visit. As the lakes freeze over, skates and sleds are easy to rent for a fun day activity. My favorite activity was to wander through the different temples and pagodas in the numerous parks, to look at all the painting and intricate wood cutting. This is the White Pagoda in Beihai Park, but this park is best known for the Nine Dragon Wall, which can be found behind the White Pagoda. In southern Beijing, you can find one of China's most notable temples, the Temple of Heaven. To access this temple, you go through numerous courtyards till you get to the central courtyard where the temple is located. This is where emperors would pray to heaven during annual ceremonies. Another great place to visit in Beijing is the Summer Palace. A fun thing to do is to hike up to the top of Longevity Hill, which is a man-made hill that was created out of the soil dug up in the creation of the man-made lake. When I visited the Summer Palace, I went with a gentleman from Holland that I had met at the hostel. He was convinced that the ice on the lake was thick enough to walk across. I told him I'm from California and we don't normally do these things, but after enough peer pressure, he got me to give it a go. I had planned this trip so that I would be in Beijing during Chinese New Year's, when all the parks are dressed up for the festivities, and many of the streets are closed all day long for parades, dragon, and lion dances. The sidewalks were lined with food stands where you could get something yummy to eat, and carnival-type games where you can test your skill and luck in the new year. On my last night in Beijing, I visited a park that had ice sculptures that lit up at night. Many of the ice sculptures were of notable monuments around the city and throughout China. And that's the end of my slideshow. I hope you liked it.